Hello everyone. I would like to take a little bit of time to talk about a recent experience that I had. I had the privilege of joining up with a fellow YouTuber, Axis and Allies YouTuber, Der Kunzler. I will put a link to his channel down below. He's been out for a while now with a lot of quality videos, very well thought out. He has a custom map that he and his friends have made, lots of custom rules, some additional pieces, and it's just very cool. So I had the privilege recently to join up with him and some of his friends to play at DK's Den. Really enjoyed the experience. His group of guys is very fun. It was a very enjoyable time. The room that he has set up is all sorts of there's theme practically coming out of the walls, let's say. There's all sorts of, little trinkets, posters, memorabilia, models, even an audio system that was playing music appropriate for the time, which added an ambiance to it. So that was all very cool, all very cool people over there. Very much enjoyed my experience. In watching a lot of the YouTube channels out there, I kind of felt like everybody was from Canada. I know Young Grasshopper, Sire Blood, I think, is from up there, and there are several other names that have been around for a long time. So when DK and I discovered, or Der Kunzler and I discovered that we both lived in Illinois, he does live a bit of a drive from me, but it's definitely still something that can be done. I can drive there and back in a day. So we were able to make an arrangement, and I was able to join his group. So it was a lot of fun, and I hope that I'm able to do it again sometime before too long. Maybe he'll and some of his crew could come to Springfield, though I don't quite have the setup that he has. And when I say I don't quite have it, I don't have anything close to what he has. But maybe we could do something like that. And I know that we have another YouTuber who lives kind of in the area, up a little bit north of me, a little bit further away. So maybe we could get a three-person game going, or get people from each of the three different gaming groups together. But that's a conversation for another time, because I also wanted to talk about how our game went. Now, Der Kunzler's custom map is much more akin to Global, and we used like a 1942 setup, and I do not have Global. If I had Anniversary Edition, I could probably use that as a proxy, but I don't have that one either, so I'm just going to use 1942 Second Edition as my proxy. I'm going to talk through what happened the first couple rounds of the game. At this point, the game is put on hold because it was getting really late, and so they're going to swing back around and pick up at a later date. I may or may not be able to join them, just depending on schedules and that sort of thing. So Germany and Russia were duking it out, as they tend to do, and the way the game had gone, it looked like to me that Germany was getting an advantage up here up in the north, but then in the last round Russia was able to counterattack and wipe out in Archangel, really. That's where the big battle was taking place. And granted, the territories aren't lined up exactly like they are in here because it's a different map, but that's the general region that it was in. So Germany still had a factory up in Leningrad. That part's the same between these two versions, but the big battle took place in Archangel. So Germany still has that factory, but the Russians had counterattacked and destroyed the German spearhead, a bunch of tanks up here in Archangel, and so now that kind of threw this northern front into a precarious situation where it's not as one-sided as it had been before. And that was where Germany was strongest, in my opinion, across the front. Not that it was in bad shape. I mean, it was still pushing into Russia along here, but the loss of that weakens the strongest part of the front, which then, I mean, we'll have to see what happens to the rest of it. I don't feel like this game, when we ended, was completely lopsided one way or the other, but until that attack, it looked like Germany was just going to keep pushing into Russia and either take Russia out or be on the gates of Moscow and start, cutting over here to get production. So Russia would be in really bad shape had they not successfully countered there. Now I see it more as like a draw along here. Let's see. England built a couple factories. They built a factory in Persia, and one of their custom rules is that a factory, no matter where you build it, can produce up to 10 units. So that's why it makes sense to put it maybe in Persia rather than India. And later they also built one down here in Australia. They seemed, especially America, and I'll get to that in a second, it seemed like they were heavily going after Japan. Which I was thankful for, being the new guy. I was playing Italy, which with all the custom rules, and with also a map that I'm not familiar with, putting me somewhere that I can get a feel for it, without making one wrong move and it completely ending the war against my side, was probably the best choice. So I appreciate them introducing me to the game with Italy. England essentially pulled out of the Mediterranean, so I didn't have to worry about them too much, but they were heavily fortified in Egypt, and there are some additional units that they play with that I won't get into, but basically they help beef up defenses. And so England was heavily defending here. Italy, myself, was heavily defending here. And I had an idea to try and swing over in Transjordan and threaten either the Persian factory or force them to pull guys out of Egypt. But some bad rolls on my part. I ended up taking it the first time, but only had, I think, one, maybe two guys there. So the counterattack was very swift. I didn't distract as many units as I had hoped. So at this stage, that's something that I'm still kind of playing around with, but I don't want to give away too much. Der Künstler was actually playing as England, so I wouldn't want to give away too much of my strategy. Excuse me. But I mean, as Italy, I think it's pretty obvious what I was trying to do. Now moving over here, the U.S. was focusing heavily on a Japan first strategy. So the game ended, or well, when we called it quits for the night, the U.S. had a massive fleet up here, and it had just made a landing of maybe 8 guys or so with, I mean, and there's fighters here, I mean, there's carriers. And Japan had been beefing up its fleet over here, seeing America coming. The problem with that, at least that Japan had, is that it was not able to devote as much to Asia as it would have liked. And there are more Chinese territories in their version than in 1942 second edition. So that part is definitely more akin to Global or Anniversary Edition. So Japan was having some trouble really making headway over here. China was being aggressive, trying to push back wherever possible. Russia was fortified up here, and they play with the truce between the sides. One side can break it, but then, or the Soviets can break it, but then Japan gets 4 infantry. I'm not sure what happens if Japan breaks it. I know there's a Mongolian rule, but the Soviets ended up breaking the treaty. And the way that the rule is phrased, basically, if any ally helps, or I don't remember exactly how it was phrased, but basically the simple act of allowing American forces, which are threatening Japan. I mean, Japan and the U.S. are at war, so if the Soviet Union allows American troops or American fighters or bombers or whatever to use Soviet territory, that it's counted as an act of aggression, an act of war, and so that counts as breaking the treaty. So Japan did get a couple extra infantry because of that, but at that point the Americans landing their big force here is what triggered it, and so now they have this force up here, the Chinese pushing in. They also were having some trouble. They're trading Burma back and forth, but they've been having some trouble getting into India. Now, were they to get into India at the same time I have a force in Transjordan, or were they in a position to threaten India, rather, at the same time that I have a sizable force in Transjordan and Libya, that would be kind of the ideal. But we've not really been able to work the timing down because Japan has really been struggling. But Japan tends to struggle when the U.S. especially, or well, when the U.S. goes after it, sure. But then if other countries are focusing resources on it, like the units from Persia, for the most part, are have been moving this way, with a few going this direction, and then there's that British factory down here. So Japan's having some trouble. So my take, in general, is just that Germany and Italy, I'm not going to excuse myself, but we really need to be making headway here. Japan is by no means crushed, but they are basically contained. Now, the Allies are expending significant resources to containing them, so it isn't a total loss for the Axis, but Japan isn't really going to be able to do a whole lot for at least a couple turns, I don't think. We were debating whether or not their fleet can take out America's fleet. If they can do that and at least prevent more reinforcements from coming over, they might be able to stabilize their position and get moving, but that isn't going to happen in a single turn. One other thing that has been a big influence, or could influence the game, and it is very different from normal rules, is how they do neutrals. So they have a system that many of us, I think, are familiar with at this point, where you're either a true neutral or you lean one way or the other. But in order to get a neutral to join you, you have to negotiate with them. And what that means is, first you have to be able to move a land unit into the territory. If you can't get there, you can't get an ambassador there, all bets are off. But assuming that you can, at the beginning of your turn, you roll dice, and if you roll a high enough number, so depending on the situation, it's either 10, 11, or 12, or in some it might just be an 11 or 12, or just a 12. I didn't take a picture of the sheet, but basically you have to, there's very specific numbers you have to roll using 2 dice. If you roll that high, depending on which number it was you got, that determines how much you pay. You're basically bribing that side to join you. Or that side, rather, they are offering to join you, but they are asking for a certain sum of money. And then you can choose, after succeeding in the roll and seeing how much it's going to be, you can choose whether or not you want to do that. So even if you succeed and you get an offer from them, you could say, no, that price is too high for me, I'm not going to do it. And that's fine. Now, without getting Turkey to join us, we cannot move in here. So I'm limited as Italy in what I can help the Germans do along their southern front until I get Turkey on my side. And I've been trying every turn. They also have a rule, one side per game can sabotage a negotiation. And I can't remember if it was Spain or Turkey. The very first turn of the game, I was able to successfully negotiate with. And of course, I was going to snag them up, and the Allies used their sabotage card. So the Axis also have a sabotage card. We haven't had need to use it yet. Each side only gets one, so the Allies won't be able to sabotage us again. But I've not had the same luck as I did the first turn. Germany was eventually able to negotiate with Spain, so Spain is on our side, but the strait is closed. I cannot get into the Black Sea at this point. Now, maybe I won't, there won't be any value for me moving in there whenever we do get Turkey, if we get Turkey. It's hard to say because Russia has beefed up Caucasus quite a bit, and I've got a couple transports, but that's not going to be enough to take out, I don't know, like 15 infantry or whatever they have in Caucasus. So we'll see. But right now I feel like the game could go either way. The German-Russian front is kind of, it's what I'll call balanced, but not stalemate. Italy is just, trying to do what Italy does. Just trying to be as useful as possible. The Chinese and the Americans are really beating up on Japan and containing it, along with some help from England. And so that's the way the game went. I'm very grateful for the opportunity. It was a lot of fun, and I'm hoping that I'm able to meet up with Der Kunstler again and his crew before too long. I don't feel like I did anything too crazy as Italy, so that's always a good thing. And it's really intriguing, the setup that they have, the custom map, and their ability to quickly make changes. In the week before the event, Der Kunstler had made a few revisions to the board, and the materials made out of, and it makes it very easy to customize. And maybe one of the things was France, a third territory got added into France, and you just put something over the top of it. It's fastened securely, and unless you're looking closely, you couldn't even tell that that wasn't the way that the board was always set up. And so they're able to quickly modify, quickly customize, try one rule, or try something where the front, let's say, between Germany and Russia is a certain way, and then you realize, there are not enough spaces between Germany's starting territory and Moscow, or something. I mean, who knows what it is, and you can just quickly say, okay, now this spot that was two territories, now it's going to be, it was one territory, now it's going to be two territories, or it's going to go the other way. It was two, let's switch it back to one. And it makes it very easy. It's very cool how they're able to quickly customize and just try different things for the improvement of game balance. So that's what I wanted to talk about today in this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And take it from me, if you have the opportunity to play with any other Axis and Allies YouTubers in your area, I highly recommend it. It was an excellent experience, and I'm hoping, like I said, to do it again, and any other YouTubers in the area, that I can join up with them before too long and have a game. So, alright, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. I hope everybody has a great 4th of July weekend.